Um, a quick intro. So the West Talk series is brought to you by both IC Impacts and UBC Future Waters Group. IC Impacts is a pan-Canadian, Canada-India research center for excellence, and it carries out research with collaboration between both India and Canada. And the UBC Future Waters Group was formed, I believe, this year um, in order to carry out interdisciplinary water research. The organizing committee has been the same since June this year. It's myself, Abhishek Jaskaran from McGill, Carl and Fuhar from UBC as well, and Feria who've been helping out. But we're definitely looking for more people to help us out. So please drop a message in the chat if you're interested in joining, especially if you're outside UBC. Um, so this is the list of talks that we've had so far. And today we have Dr. Sunil Gupta from Indian Institute of Technology and or Indian School of Mines, Dhanbad. And he's going to be talking about controlling trihalomethane formation in drinking water supply for the Indian case study. And just a note for everybody who's attending today, we will actually be switching to a once in 2 weeks format, so a bi-weekly format from the next talks, and that will continue for the next semester as well. So the next West Talks is going to be on December 3rd and not on the 26th. And that will be Dr. Andrew Welton from Purdue. Okay, if you've missed any of the previous talks, please feel free to go to the IC Impacts YouTube page. We have been uploading videos as we can. So if you don't see a video that's up there, it will be up shortly. And finally, it's my pleasure to actually introduce our speaker for today, actually our first speaker from India, Dr. Sunil Gupta, who's going to be talking about controlling trihalomethane formation in drinking water supply. Dr. Gupta received his doctorate in environmental science and engineering from the Indian Institute of Technology, Bombay, in the year 2004. He then worked at the National Environmental Engineering Institute, executing solid waste management of Municipal Corporation of New Delhi, and at the Royal Bhutan Institute of Technology in Bhutan, before he started working as a professor. Now he acts as the head of the Department of Environmental Science and Engineering at Indian Institute of Technology, Dhanbad. His research specialization includes water and wastewater engineering with special emphasis on the treatment of industrial wastewater using advanced bioreactors, drinking water quality, disinfection byproducts management, municipal solid waste management, environmental audit, and environmental impact assessment. So he really covers the whole spectrum of wastewater treatment. He has published more than 60 research papers in peer-reviewed international journals, one book and 5 book chapters, and he has also successfully steered more than 100 consultancy projects and 8 Government of India sponsored research and development projects. Dr. Gupta has been awarded the Young Scientist Award by American Academy of Sciences. He was also a member of the Expert Appraisal Committee of the Ministry of Environment, Forestry and Climate Change with the Government of India for coal and thermal power projects from 2018 to 2020. He's also a life member of the Mining Geology and Metallurgical Institute of India and Indian Waterworks Association. Quite a long resume there and a lot of achievements, really. His goal and aim is to provide technology-driven solutions for the benefit of community and society. And I'm very happy on behalf of everybody to welcome you today, sir. And I'll hand it over to you now for your presentation.
Okay. So thank you, Mr. Abhishek and Dr. Fuhar for such a nice introduction of mine. And now it's time to start with my lecture. My topic of presentation has been the controlling trihalomethane in drinking water supply, a case study of India. So let me share my screen. Yes. So are you able to see the screen?
Yes, we see it already.
Yeah.
Okay. So maybe before I talk to this topic, I will like to provide you a brief introduction of trihalomethanes. What are the trihalomethanes, how they are formed, and what are their health hazards, impacts onto the health, which may cause number of disease and may cause impairment of our health as a whole. So the content of our presentation will include the introduction to the trihalomethanes, the causes of THM formations, how the THMs are formed, what are the reactions that causes the THMs to be produced in drinking water supply, and then also its the health impacts and the standards for THMs which have been adopted worldwide by different countries, and then we have the strategies, various strategies how to control the THM in drinking water, and then finally we will be discussing about the special techniques or the methods which we have studied here in India for controlling this THM formation in drinking water. And then finally we'll have a concluding remarks on the session. So with this, I start my lecture. So let us talk about the trihalomethanes. So these trihalomethanes are basically the halogenated compounds having single carbon compounds with general formula of CHCl, CHX3, where X may be any halogenated elements like chlorine, bromine, iodine, and they are basically, when we talk about this trihalomethanes, that basically we mean with this group, the four group of compounds which are normally formed. They are basically the chloroform, the bromodichloromethanes, CHBrCl2, and the dimonochloromethanes, that is CHBr2Cl2, and then finally the bromoform. When we see these bromoforms, they are basically produced because of as a byproduct when we do the disinfection of the treated water, which we have to supply to the community for their daily uses. So basically there are a number of byproducts which we together call them disinfection byproducts, but out of them if we see the trihalomethanes and the haloacetic acids, they are most commonly present in the drinking water, and out of that I have taken a part of THMs, which includes these compounds mainly. And in these compounds also, if we go in more detail, we'll see that out of all four compounds, most of the compounds which are mostly present, the most prevalent form, that is chloroform. And that's why we sometimes use this chloroform as an indicator for total disinfection byproducts in drinking water. So this is the THM formation, how the THMs are formed basically. If we see the mechanism, that is basically the NOM. NOM includes basically the decay products of living being, such as leaves, human and animal waste, which are dissolved into the water, may be also present in the form of suspended impurities. When the chlorination of such water is done, then these chlorine basically reacts with this natural organic matter. This chlorine compound reacts with NOM and give rise to the formation of these chlorinated compounds that we say the THM. And then this basically, why chlorine is used basically, because it has a very high oxidizing potential and is the most efficient disinfectant. That's why in India, mostly everywhere we use this chlorine as a disinfectant for drinking water supply. This chlorine basically reacts with this natural organic matter, which may be like fulvic acid, which may be humic acid, amino acids, proteins, carbohydrates, and this gives rise to even this can also react with the iodide. If there are bromide ions, they will also be reacted, and finally they will form the trihalomethane. And this from formation is influenced mainly by different factors such as chlorine dose, the concentration and the nature of the NOM, the organic matter, which kind of organic matter they are, whether they are humic substances, whether they are of non-humic, hydrophilic, hydrophobic nature. So this all depends on the quantum of THMs will be produced, and then we have the chlorine contact time, how much contact time we provide for chlorine to react with to this NOM, and then pH. Then also it depends upon the temperature of the water, and then various bromide ions, iodide ions, if they are present in the drinking water. So this is all about the THM formations, and then we look upon whether these THMs they are really harmful. Yeah, the answer is yeah, because in 1970s the first study was conducted by US EPA, wherein they have declared that these THM species can give rise to the cancers like bladder cancers, and that's why they have regulated their concentration in drinking water, that they should not exceed by 80 ppb. And then the study have also found that they may put a lot of risk of cancer onto the rectum and the colon, and also they have a lot of adverse impacts on the reproductive health effects, and such as it may give rise to the low birth weight of babies, it may give rise to the premature births, it may also give rise to the miscarriage cases in the community. So there have been a wide range of health impacts. This is the tree which shows a wide range of effects of the trihalomethanes, like it can damage the liver, it can damage the kidney, it can damage the intestine system, it can, the chloroform, even in an excess concentration, the people can go into the coma and even can go very high concentration, they may lead to the death. So there have been also effects on the nervous system. There has been also effects like being carcinogens. It may cause number of carcinogenic problems to the community. So this is basically, now we'll talk upon the guidelines. So what are the different guidelines because of this carcinogenic nature and various health related issues? The different countries, they have fixed the standards or the guidelines value for their regulations, their control in the drinking water supply. So you can see this is WHO standard, this is US EPA, this is Canada, then European Union, then UK, Japan, New Zealand, and this is for India also in 2012. After a lot of study, we have also regulated these THMs in drinking water supply. Accordingly, the concentration range, permissible range of these THM compounds like chloroform, bromodichloromethanes, and then dibromochloromethanes concentration, bromoform concentration, all have been regulated in drinking water supply by different regulatory agencies. So this, India also, after having a lot of studies that has been conducted by our department, and when it is the report has been submitted, these regulations have been also put over controlling the drinking water supply. And this basically, I'll show you the different speciation of the THMs, the distribution of THM species. Basically, one scientist from NEERI, National Environmental Engineering Institute, Dr. Thakkar, they had sampled the drinking water from different states of the India, and this they have given the speciation of these THM species all over the states. Accordingly, if we look into this speciation or trihalomethanes formation, then what we can see here, everywhere you can see the gray color represent basically the chloroforms. So everywhere you can see most of the part, more than 90%, that is everywhere is the chloroform species. Somewhere we can also see there is a dibromochloromethane. That is because those states there have been some industrial discharge of bromide ions into the water that has reacted and give rise to the formation of dibromochloromethane species in that water. So this is the overall speciation of the trihalomethanes, and then we have also carried out a number of studies. This is like the experimental details, the design of our experiments. Like first of all, we have collected the samples for different seasons like pre-monsoon, post-monsoon, and then the winter season. Then we have taken over those samples and analyzed for these THM species. Then we have studied the correlation among different water quality parameters with the THMs to know about how these parameters they are correlated. And then also finally we have done this treatability study. Basically, while deciding the treatability study, what we wanted to do, if we can control the THMs before the disinfection, and this is after the disinfection. Before the disinfection, when we talk, we should know about the THM precursors, the compounds or the species or the elements which are basically causing the trihalomethane formations. So we have seen that mainly that the natural organic matter, that is the main precursor for formation of these trihalomethanes. So we have done a study where we have studied the removal of NOM, natural organic matter, before it is being, the water is being chlorinated. So we have used various techniques like enhanced coagulation, flocculation methods, then adsorption methods, then we have also developed some natural coagulants, liquid coagulants, and using different process, we have studied the removal of natural organic matter from the drinking water. So we'll be showing, before going into the more details of the treatment techniques, let me show the map of the study area where we have covered the drinking waters, water treatment plant. So that basically, this area basically is in the northeast part of the Jharkhand, that our India, where we have selected 5 number of water treatment plants, those who are supplying water to the community. The first water treatment plant, this is the Indira Gandhi water treatment plant. This is in Kolkata, which is one of the metro city of the India. And then another is ADA, that is Asansol Durgapur Development Authority, has built up this water treatment plant. And then we have also took this Maithan water treatment plant. Then also we have taken Jama Doba water treatment plants, and then this is a Rukka treatment plant, which is there in the Ranchi. That is the place of Dhoni, you know, where our MS Dhoni, the most cricketer, used to be there, is the native place. So that place also we have selected, and we have got a sample of drinking water from their treatment plant. So this is basically the more details of those water treatment plants, like this MADA, the water treatment plant MADA. This is covering a population of around 15 lakhs. They are supplying the water to 1.5 million people. And this Asansol Durgapur Development Authority, They are basically covering around 10 lakhs per population, and also they are covering to the industry, schools, and substations. Uh, but their capacity, the single unit treatment plant have a capacity of 5 MGD. And then Indira Gandhi water treatment plant, this is the biggest unit, biggest water treatment plant in the country. That is 260 MGD, million gallon per day. And this is covering around 51 lakhs population. Entire Kolkata metro, they are basically, they are based upon this drinking water supply from this water treatment plant. And then we have a Maithan water treatment plant in our own city, Dhanbad, that is 14.5 million MGD, and this is covering around 60,000 population. And then we have a Swarnarekha water treatment plant in Ranchi, that is covering around 10 lakhs population of capacity 37.5 MGD. So this is all about the details of the water treatment plant, which we have selected for collection of the water sample, their performance analysis, to see how much trihalomethanes are formed even after the treatment of the water through these water treatment plants. So these are the photographs, some photographs of our students, those the research scholar who have worked for this project. So this is Asansol Durgapur Development water treatment plant. They are collecting the water samples from the clarifier after the outlet. And this is all the photographs of different water treatment plant where they have gone, they have visited and collected the water samples. And then after bringing the water sample to our labs, we have analyzed those water samples for different THM species. For analysis, we have used this gas chromatograph. This is the gas chromatograph of Sigma. Sigma company has supplied this. And this basically, we have used a detector of ECD detector, and also we have used the column DB5 for injecting the sample through and separating these different species at different temperature, injector temperature, detector temperature we have set into, and we have got the THM's analysis done through this equipment. And this is the setup we have used, that is basically the typical jar test operators, where we have done the enhanced coagulation and flocculation studies. These are the jars where we add different coagulants. This is the stirring mechanism. This is regulated by the control board here. So this has been used in coagulation and flocculation study. So this is basically the concentration range of THMs. What we have got is basically the concentration range in different water treatment plant varied from 274 ppb to 504 ppb, which is much higher than the US EPA guidelines of 80 ppb. And then if we see the speciation, then we got whether out of the different THM species of chloroform, bromoform, dichloromonobromoform, the chloroform had the maximum concentration, and that more than 90% of the THMs was constituted by this trihalomethanes, by this chloroform. So this is about the analysis of the drinking water treatment plant. And this is, then we have also analyzed the samples to see the how THMs, they basically varied through the seasons, like in different seasons, like we have autumn, we have summer, we have rainfall, and then we have winter season. So which season basically we had got the maximum concentration. So we can see this followed a typical variation, like the maximum value we have got in the season autumn, followed by summer, and then winter and fall. So this is like the average level of the DHMs measured. Basically, they are found in maximum in the autumn season, and the minimum was found in the winter season. So this is already, we have told you the distribution of the species, that out of the 4 THM species, this chloroform makes the constitute the maximum part of the THMs, that is more than 95.93%. Where DBCM, if we see, that was around 2.58%, while this DCBM, it was merely 1.54%. But bromoform here we cannot see, because in our drinking water there was no bromide ion. So if bromide ions are not there, the 4th THM species, that is the bromoform, was also absent in all the cases in all the water treatment plants. And then we have studied the correlation, how these parameters, like different water quality parameters, THM precursors, they are, how exactly they are correlated with the THM formation. So this is, here we can see the pH, temperature, residual chlorine, and the retention time, TOC, DOC, UB254. They have been correlated with the THMs, and we found by correlation study the maximum correlation was with the temperature. The most influencing parameter which may give rise to the THM formation is basically the temperature, because temperature, more the temperature, there is a high rate of reactions, there is a high reactivity of chlorine, and that results into the maximum THM production. Followed by this pH also, as we can see, there is a strong positive correlation with pH, means at the pH, if the water has in alkaline medium, then it will give rise to the more THMs. If it is in acidic conditions, then this THM production can be curtailed to even less than 50%. So these are all revealed from the correlation of the different parameters with the THMs. Then now let us talk about, finally we talk about the different control techniques that we are using, that we have studied in our lab for controlling these trihalomethane formations. So these are basically first, before planning, we have seen like the strategies for what is the current status of removal of these THM precursors, basically the TOC, DOC, UB254, SHUBA. These are basically main precursors which may give rise to the formation of THM species. And the average efficiency in different water treatment plants, we have seen that the treatment plant, they can remove 83% of turbidity, but these THM precursors like TOC, DOC, they are removed less than 50%. Means rest of 50% of the TOC, DOC, they are basically responsible for production of trihalomethane in drinking water. So we have made our strategy to first remove the THMs by removing the THM precursors, and then this is before the disinfection, and once they are formed after the post disinfection, we can also have the strategies like the treatment techniques like adsorption to remove out these trihalomethanes from the water. So let me first discuss the first unit operations or the experiments that we have tried, that is enhanced coagulation and flocculation process. So here what we have done basically, if we see in our drinking water treatment, the coagulation and flocculation process is most essential, and it is normally done by adding the alum. So here we have studied if only alum is done, alum is used as a coagulant, then the DOC removal we have got around 60%. Then instead of alum, we have also used the ferric chloride, and this is for all, this is the coagulant dose, and here this is DOC levels, here this is DOC removals. They have been plotted for different doses. So what we have got finally, the optimum removal, the maximum removal of this DOC using alum alone can only be limited to 60%. Where instead of alum, if we do with the chlorine, the removal percent becomes 72%. Then what in the next experiment, the same thing we tried, and what we have done, we have added alum, and then in addition to alum, the ferric chloride was also used in combination. And then what we can see here, there was little increase in the removal efficiency of these DOC when we use these two coagulants together. And then finally, this is basically for UB254 removal. These plots are for DOC removal. These plots are for UB254 removal. UB254 is also a kind of indicator of humic substances or humic portion of the organic matter. So this we can see with alum and ferric chloride, this UB254 also got increased to 82% from mere 76% and 62% values when it is used alone. So combination was found, combination of the two coagulant was always found better in our study, that instead of using a single coagulant, if we use the combination of the two coagulants, then we can enhance the this DOC removal, and also the UB254 removal from drinking water. And this is accordingly the trihalomethane's formation potential when we use this alum 57%, when we use ferric chloride 68%, and which can be increased by using alum and ferric chloride together to 72%. This is basically the comparative study that is that already I have explained by those graphs, that when we use this alum and chloride, the DOC removal we can achieve by 86.2%, UB254 removal 82%, and this reduces the THM formation potential to more than 76%. Then one more study was done where we have used the nano materials. That is the MNPs, is magnetized nanoparticles. Basically, this we have generated by co-precipitation method by the salts of ferrous chloride and ferric chloride. How they were synthesized, this is the synthesis procedure. Like the combination of the two salts, ferric chloride and ferrous chloride, were put into the HCl solution in presence of ammonia, and this ferrous, the concentration was 0.25 molar, and ferric salt had a concentration of 0.5 molar. These solutions were added together in a concentrated HCl solution. They were stirred for around 30 minutes in a room temperature. Then this causes precipitation, and then by adding the aqueous ammonia solution of 2 ml per minute, the entire precipitation was carried out. And then we have in the precipitated form, we had MNPs, but these MNPs were found to make them stable, to endure the particles dispersibility and biocompatibility. We have coated with polyethylene glycol, PEG, was then added to synthesize the finally MNPs, which can be stable, which can be endure with the particles dispersibility and chemical stability as well. Subsequently, these MNPs were washed out with a solution of ethanol and deoxygenated with the distilled water and then dried, and they were stored. So this basically the chemical reactions, the ferrous and the ferric ions, they react with the OH ions, and then finally they produce F3O4, and which was the major composition of the MNPs, which were responsible for removal in the further studies. So this basically gives you the SEM image, that scanning electron microscope. We have taken the photographs. These are the MNPs which were precipitated without using the surfactant, that polyethylene PEG, and then this is after using the surfactant, and this is without using the surfactant. Here you can see they are agglomerated, they are not dispersed form. So there had been no chemical stability. So we have coated with this PEG to have better chemical stability, and they can be more in the dispersed form. So now, after this SEM image, we have seen that the particles were mostly in spherical shape, having 20 to 30 nanometer size, and the surface area were around 9.85 meter square per gram, and having a negative zeta potential ranging from minus 58 to 75 millivolts. And then this basically graph shows the absorption of NOM, this TOC, DOC at different pH, at different time interval, at different doses. So here we can see the maximum absorption of the pH was obtained at a pH of around 7.5, that is around 6.5 milligram per gram, and this was achieved at a dose of around 0.75 gram. So this also, if the time we see, the maximum residence time needed for this was around 30 minutes. So with this MNPs, we had a little bit, in fact, even much more efficient as adsorbent for removal of this NOM. Around 94 to 95% of NOM they are removed using these nanoparticles. Then these nanoparticles, they were also, we thought, why not we add these nanoparticles along with our enhanced coagulation and flocculation process as a coagulant, to see their impacts on whether we can, because here coagulation is basically the main process everywhere we use. And then here when we have added only MNPs, then we have got as alone the MNPs can remove around 94.6% of the DOCs. Okay, this is for DOC removal, and this is for DOC levels at different doses of MNPs. Similarly, these MNPs were then added with the ferric chloride, and also these MNPs were added with the alum, and where we have seen there has been no added advantages, even there was reduction in the removal efficiency what we get when we add MNPs alone as a coagulant. Then similar behavior we have got in case of UB254 removal, that MNPs, when they were used, they could remove around 90% of the UB254 material, whereas when they were in combination with the ferric chloride and the alum, their reduction efficiency, rather than going for enhancing, they have been reduced. So from this we can conclude that MNPs as alone can have better efficiency as a coagulant than using in combination. And these are the similar, we have got the because of these removals of NOM, the trihalomethane formation potential we can remove by more than 84% when we use MNPs alone, whereas in this case when we use in along with alum and along with ferric chloride, this efficiency got decreased. And this is the technique basically. Then we tried the adsorption process, that is natural, using the natural adsorbent. For that we prepared a natural adsorbent low cost material we have used, that is basically the bale fruit cell. This is the bale fruit cell. These are the bale fruit. Bale fruit is a kind of tree product, tree fruit, which is very much available in our country, and that the outer part of that fruit has been separated, and it was boiled at around 100 degrees centigrade for about 1 hour to remove out any dead cells and surface bound impurities. And then it was shredded and impregnated with phosphoric acid, that concentration 88% phosphoric acid in the ratio of 2:1, and kept into the oven for around 2 hours at 100 degrees centigrade for their chemical activation. And after the chemical activation, we have carbonized the material at 500 degrees centigrade in oxygen deficient inert conditions for around 1 hour in the muffle furnace, and then the prepared material was cooled and continuously washed with the hot distilled water until it showed the neutral pH. Finally, it was air dried, ground, and stored for our experiments. So this is the final product basically which has been obtained from this bale fruit cells, and this was used for removal of NOM, and this we see that is basically the cleared water without of NOM material. So this is basically the same image of the braid. This is basically the part A. It shows the dried and shredded this bale fruit cell, the SEM image. This is after the chemical activation, and this is basically after the carbonization. Lot of porosity, the structure became more porous, and this basically gives the SEM image after adsorption of NOM material onto its intercept sites. This is, then we have studied the removal of this NOM using this process, using this natural adsorbent. So I think we are running out of time, and we have very limited time. So we'll not go in much detail, and will here what we have seen is at a dose of 6 gram per liter and pH of 7 and a residence time of 42 to 40 minutes, we got a removal efficiency of around 92% using this natural coagulant. And then we have also tried one liquid coagulant, which was basically derived from the fly ash, and that basically was synthesized by extracting the fly ash from 4 molar of solutions of sulfuric acid and sodium hydroxides at 105 degrees centigrade for 2 hours. Continuously stirring was done, and then 150 ml of this acid leached out solution was heated and they are added with 20 ml of alkali leached out solution at the rate of 1 ml per minute to obtain the different ratio of, basically the final product was having lot of aluminum, iron along with the silica. And then this liquid was then used as a liquid coagulant in the enhanced coagulation and flocculation process. And this is again, after drying the liquid, we have got the same images. This is for fly ash. This is basically the fly ash after this liquid coagulants. After a, this is the enlarged view of that liquid coagulants. And then this is basically when added into the water after the precipitation, what are the flocks are generated. This gives the precipitated flocks SEM image. And this is basically the removal, optimum removal what we have got with this coagulants. This basically shows for the turbidity, this shows for the UV254, and this plot shows for the DOC removal. So from here also we can see the maximum DOC removal we can get. We have got around 80 to 82% at a dose of 6 ml per liter and at a pH of 7, and the optimum pH we have got around 7 for this process to happen. And this is basically the comparison of the efficiency of different coagulants, that is MNPs, then DFS, and then the liquid coagulants. Here we can see out of these 3, we can get the maximum removal 94.6% in case of these nanoparticles, that is MNPs. And this, by this we have ended to our this presentation. The concluding remarks on this basis of this our study, we can say that the THM ranges in our drinking water supply is not meeting to the drinking water supply standards, and they were found in the range from 230 to around 485 microgram per liter, which exceeded both the standard US EPA and WHO regulatory standards. Amongst the different THM species, if we see, the majority of the species, more than 95%, 96%, they are contributed by chloroform. Chromoform was not found in our case because of absence of bromide in our drinking water supply system. And then the correlation among the different water quality parameters revealed that the maximum correlation was with the temperature, means temperature can be most influencing parameter for THM formation, followed by pH, and then the THM precursors like TOC, DOC, UV254. And then this is the enhanced coagulation study, revealed that if we add ferric chloride, if we add MNPs, we can increase the efficiency of our coagulation and flocculation system by more than 26%. And out of different adsorbent we studied, the MNPs showed the excellent NOM removal, more than 94%. with the absorption capacity of very high absorption capacity 59.98 milligram per gram at an optimum dose of 0.75 gram per liter and a pH of 7. So this is all my publications in the international journals based on these studies. These are 3 more publications on international journals, and then we have also written 1 book chapters, and these are the paper presented into different seminars, conferences and workshops by my students. And this is the end of my presentation. Thank you guys for your patience hearing, and maybe I can invite your questions.